All right, so welcome back. This is the thunderwizard.com YouTube channel, and this is the Omnipotence series, specifically how to manifest magically anything you want in the Manifestation Mastery course, which can be found at thunderwizard.com. This is the third video in the Omnipotence series. And today I'm going to be talking to you about the obstacles. So just to do a short recap, we talked about the components. So this is the Omnipotence interface components. These are the 5 things that make up your manifestation machine. Because human beings, bear in mind, you are not this. This is not you. Here you have a brain, and in the brain you have a spinal column with a bunch of nerves, and you have eyes and ears, and you have emotions and an identity and all kinds of psychological stuff. That's not you either. You are a soul. You are an infinite soul that has come to Earth to experience three-dimensional reality in a video game setting. You've made it a challenging and fun experience for the soul. Sometimes for you, your human brain, your human emotions, it can be very, very challenging, but for your soul, it's not damaging to the soul. It's actually fun and challenging for the soul. Just like when you play a video game. You get really wrapped up in it, your guy dies, you get upset, and then you realize it's just a game, and then you put another quarter in the machine and you do it all over again. This is what life is like. So this thing, this physical body, this brain, these emotions, all of the things that you use to interface and experience life with, this is actually a manifestation machine. And so in the first Omnipotence series, we talked about the components. So the components are your soul, which is the eternal self, the mind, which is not your intellect, which acts as the projector, which projects your intentions onto the blank screen of three-dimensional reality. 3, your personality software, which is also known as your lower self, which is located in the navel area. This is your personality, your my name is so-and-so, I live here, I did this, I feel this way about that. This is my programming about who I am, what I like, etc., etc. And then number 4, your upgrade sensor, which is your higher self. This is the part of you that is constantly getting upgrades. Just like when your phone gets an upgrade, you get upgrades from your higher self. Whether you choose to, just like with your phone, whether you choose to activate that upgrade to your phone, it's completely up to you. Same thing with your higher self. And then 5, you have this 3D interfaced software, which I am referring to as the intellect. Most people consider it the mind. It's not. Your brain is not your mind. Your brain is the hardware. The intellect is the software that runs the brain. Tells you up is down, right is left, my shirt is blue, this has a moonstone in it, I got to drive on the right side of the street or the left side of the street, depending on where you live. So those are the 5 components that your manifestation machine has to have integrated in order to function magically, because that's really what it is. You're a magical manifestation machine, whether you realize it or not. If you're miserable, unhappy, unhealthy, bad relationships, I understand and I relate, but that is your unconscious manifestation. So the goal for the soul is the game of learning to become fully conscious so that you can control this manifestation machine and have as much fun as possible. That's the highest spiritual goal. Have as much fun as you can possibly have on this three-dimensional virtual reality game that we're experiencing. So that was the first in the series. The second in the series was, let's see, was it this one? Yes, the second in the series was the rules. So the rules are, number one, you're an infinite soul choosing to have a virtual reality experience. Number two, you are a manifestation machine. And three, you can make anything you truly want come true. There are two other rules, but if you want to see what those rules are, go to thunderwizard.com and subscribe to the Manifestation Mastery course, and I talk about the other two rules. So today we're going to do the third video in the series, which is we're going to talk about the obstacles. So you have the components, you have the rules. So there are certain rules that if you understand the rules, you can win the game every time. What I'm trying to say here is that most people, first off, don't even realize that they are a manifestation machine. But secondly, they don't realize that it's not a mystery if you know what the rules are. You just follow the rules, and it's just like turning on a lever. Things happen the way you intend them. So there are obstacles as well. So you have to know what the rules are and what the obstacles are. So the obstacles are what we're going to talk about today. And I'm listing them as 3 obstacles. I'm going to talk to you about 2 of them in this video. But stay till the end of the video and I'll tell you where you can go to hear about what the third one is. Okay, so let's talk about the first 2. So the first 2 is, let me see, let's hope this is the right one. Yeah, I did it. Yeah, okay. So this is the obstacles. So I'm going to be talking about 3 things that prevent you from being able to completely activate and turn on your manifestation machine and master this 3-dimensional video game we call life. So the first one is called projection. The second obstacle is introjection. And the third obstacle we will talk about a little bit later. So these, if you're familiar with psychology, these are familiar terms. I'm sure you've heard of them. But it's incredibly important to understand how these work. Forgive me while I take a sip of juice. It's incredibly important you understand how these work. Because the obstacles, I mean, people can get blocked up anywhere. Not having the 5 components functioning and working together, not understanding the rules. But the obstacles is really what stops most people the most. And these obstacles have to do with my new favorite catchphrase for this channel, which is to take back control of your soul, reverse their programming. And we talk a lot about the narrative. You don't necessarily realize it, but everything you do is a script that's been written. You are following a script. You don't think so. As Jung said, you must make that which is unconscious conscious. Otherwise, you'll think it is fate. You'll think it's God's will. You'll think you're cursed. In other words, if you don't make what is in your unconscious conscious, then you will think that things are happening to you. Destiny is something that's out of your control. Your life is out of your control. And this is where people really get into problems. This is why religion is such a powerful manipulative tool for the masses, because you are set up in this game. What the main obstacle, not one of these 3, but the main obstacle that you've put into this 3-dimensional virtual reality game that your soul is playing, what you've put in there is to realize that you are in fact the one who has created this game. And so part of the challenge is to wake up. We talk about becoming enlightened. We talk about becoming woke. I mean, whatever word you want to use, it's the same thing. It's becoming conscious of the fact that, oh, I'm the one making everything happen. But what's happened is that you've been given a program. You've been given a script. You don't know that. And you operate from that script, that programming, without even realizing it. You think you're making decisions. You think you're making choices. You're not. You think that things are just happening to you. You don't understand. I couldn't help it. This happened to this, and that happened with that, and the universe and the devil made me do it, and God's will and the elite, and there's just always something that is making the decision for you in your experience. But in actuality, you are unconsciously playing out a script. So if you change the script, if you change the narrative, my name is so-and-so, I grew up this, my parents did that, life does this to me, life does that to me. It's a narrative. And you hear people will tell you what their narrative is. If you listen, you can always hear them tell you what the narrative is. Okay? So, the three main obstacles that actually create the script, that create the narrative, are the three obstacles we're going to talk about. Before we talk about that, I must lay a foundational assumption for you. As you know, everything is based on assumptions. Critical thinking. If you haven't already, please watch my videos about critical thinking so you can understand what I mean when I talk like this. But you operate from assumptions, which are base programs. An obvious assumption is if I step off a cliff, I'll fall to my death. There's an assumption that gravity exists. And that is a correct assumption, by the way. If you follow that assumption and do not step off cliffs, you will not fall to your death. But there are other assumptions that you have about everything else. If you have accurate assumptions about life, life will serve you. If you have inaccurate assumptions, either incomplete or outright false assumptions about how life works, then every conclusion that you make after that will at best be incomplete, if not outright completely unworkable. So if you heard people, maybe you've said it, I know I've said it in my life, where you say, where somebody says that no matter how hard they try, nothing ever works out for them. Well, one of the possibilities is that they've got inaccurate assumptions about how the world works, their relationship to the universe, and they're taking actions based on those inaccurate, incomplete assumptions, and they're getting faulty results. So I'm going to give you an assumption here which has served me, and it's taken me, pretty much my whole life to come to this awareness. And that is that there's really only one thing that humans want. It's only one thing. Everything that they do is based on trying to get this one thing. This one thing is the most powerful survival instinct that we have. It is more powerful than the desire for food, for air, for clothing, for anything else on the physical realm. That desire is to feel loved, to feel a part of something, to be loved, to be experienced, to be heard. This is the most fundamental instinct that we have, and everything we do is associated with that. Now, we all manifest that in a bunch of different ways, but you can always boil it down to that. Think of the worst serial killer in existence. They want love. It's so twisted and messed up that that's how they express it. But but they want the same thing that you do. And so if you can understand that, lay that assumption in, then you'll understand how these three obstacles play in. Because again, these three obstacles are directly linked to the narrative, the script that you have written in your unconscious. I'm touching my navel center. Written in your unconscious that determine all of, not just your actions, but your thoughts, your feelings, your reactions to your thoughts, your reactions to other people. You know, you hear me go and attack ideas, you know, about, you know, thoughts or things, and you have to control your thoughts. And it's like, you can't control your thoughts. Your thoughts are creations and reactions to the narrative, to the programming. If you have negative thoughts that just jump into your mind, unpleasant thoughts that jump into your mind, it's because of the narrative that you've written. If you've written a narrative, and most people are completely unconscious of the narrative that they have ingested and written for themselves, there's all kinds of thoughts that pop up. So you can't control that. You also have very little control over your emotions. You do have some control over your emotional state, but for the most part, you have very little control over your feelings and your instincts and your desires. Very little control. But a lot of it is associated, again, with the unconscious narrative, the script that's been written for you. So bear in mind, again, that the assumption is that everything can be boiled down to the desire to be loved. Just to give you an example, you've heard me say it before, but infants will literally die from a lack of love. And many people who have very serious mental disorders, very toxic, destructive people who, you know, for all intents and purposes are crazy. They can't function in the real world. Many of those disorders are the direct result of not being loved as an infant. And, you know, we know this. We've known this for hundreds of years, that you can give a child everything. You can give an infant warmth. You can give it nourishment. You can, you know, clothing. But if you do not interact with the child, if you do not love the child will die. So this is the most important survival instinct that we have: to be loved, to be seen, to be experienced, to have a feeling of being, of having unity with the rest of existence, with everybody else. So, in order to survive, we do all kinds of things as we are growing up, as we are being programmed. We are being fed information. In order to be loved, you have to do this. You have to be this. Even if it goes against our deepest soul instincts, the human part of us will override that in an attempt to get their very real survival needs met, which is love. Bear in mind, an infant, you know, we're not that far from cavemen. Human beings in their modern form, you know, the most recent evolutionary form, we've been on the planet for only 100,000 years. But, you know, human beings, earlier versions of humans have been around for millions of years. Of those millions of years that human beings have been evolving, it's only been in literally the last 100 years that our physical needs are not something we need to deal with. Go back 100 years, 500 years, 1,000, 2,000 years. You go back 10,000 years, which is a blink of an eye in human evolution, which means you operate from it. Literally, children died all the time because their parents would choose not to take care of them. You had to. It was cold. You could only survive with 3 kids. You had 4, the new one pops out, we can't feed it. Give it to the gods, put it on the rock, leave it there. If it's born with the slightest, malfunction, it's only got 4 fingers instead of 5. Yeah, we can't. It's not going to survive. So that first few months is the most important time for our survival. Now, we don't realize that now because for most people in the world today, there's no threat of people not having food and clothing. Even if, we talk about even people who are super poor in the United States and other places, food is much easier to get. You can still be dirt poor and still have plenty of food, even if you're eating, fast food and other garbage. You're not going to starve to death. But your body doesn't know that. Your body, has not evolved anything beyond what it was, 10,000, 20,000 years ago. Your psyche is exactly set up to be brought into a Stone Age world. And so those first couple of months, the first 3 years, but especially in those first few months, the infant is already, we know from scientific experiments, not experiments, but from observation, we know that infants, even at day 5, are already seeking to manipulate the parents to notice them. Sounds with their eyes, even though they can't do a hell of a lot, they're designed to get mom and dad's love. So, you got it? The assumption is in there. Your prime, most important driving force in the world is to be loved. And these 3 obstacles are a direct result of that desire, which is a survival desire. The desire to be loved is the deepest, most powerful survival instinct that you have. That instinct will drive you to create a dysfunctional narrative, an incomplete, maybe outright false script about who you are, what you do, what you want, what life is all about. And here's how, in the 3 ways that this occurs. So, let's take a look at that again. So the list here, the obstacles. First one is projection. You hear me talk about this all the time. And, just open your eyes. You'll see yourself doing it all the time, and you will see people doing it to you all the time. Every single day, all the time, wherever you go. There's no way that you can have an interaction with somebody without having this. So projection is just what it sounds. You are projecting onto another person as though they're a blank screen. You are projecting onto them thoughts, feelings, desires, agendas. You're projecting onto them all the time. You'll walk into the room and, listen to yourself, or you'll be out in public, walking down the street, going into a grocery store, whatever it is. You immediately start to project on others what they think of you. Now, this happens on a deeply unconscious level. Most of the time, it's on autopilot. You don't even realize it. Watch people. There are some people, they're very friendly. They seem to be very honest and very friendly. They'll go up and talk to you. Well, they obviously have a projection, and that's a positive one. I mean, people love me. Hi, how are you? My name's so-and-so. Hey, do you have the time? Hey, it was really nice. Yeah, let's exchange numbers. You'll run into people that don't want to talk to anybody. No, I don't. They don't trust anybody, so they're projecting, that you don't have any. That you're not valuable. They don't want anything from you. There are people who are afraid. You think that everybody's out to get you because it's possible somebody might have some negative feelings. You don't know. So to protect yourself, you throw out the projection of people don't like me. They're out to get me. You project into what people say. If what they say isn't really clear, and you can read between the lines, you will put meaning in between the lines. You will project onto them. Right? I mean, just today, I went out surfing today, and there was a young woman, French woman. She was, I guess she was a tourist, and she came over and she started talking to me. I was putting my wetsuit on, ready to go out. I normally, when you're out in the bush and people are, there's only, you leave single women alone. You don't get in their space. You don't. It's just, it's weird. So I don't. I leave them alone. She walks over to me. She starts talking. Hey, have you been out here? What's it like? Is it okay to be a beginner? And so long story short, I said, hey, if you want, I'll walk out there with you. And if you want, I'll paddle out there with you. I know, she was afraid. I don't know other currents. I'll make sure you're okay. If things are a little sketchy, I'll bring you back in. And I honestly thought, I projected onto her that what she wanted was that she wanted a friend who she could go surfing with. Now, that's my projection because I like that idea. I'd love to have a friend I could go surfing with. So, after we come back in and everything, I say to her, hey, I would love to have a surfing partner. I'd love to have somebody, because she was asking me, what about this spot over there and that spot? And I said, I would love to have a surfing partner. Why don't we exchange numbers? To which she then recoiled and said, no, I'll just see you around. It was like, where did that come from? My honest intention was really just, whenever I was going to go surfing, I'd text her and say, hey, I'm going to go surfing. You want to come? If she wanted to say, I'm going to go surfing, you want to come? That's what I thought was going to happen. But no, I projected onto her. She wanted a friend because that's what I'm looking for. She projected onto me that, oh, here's this older American guy. He just wants to get in my pants. I have to protect myself. We do this all the time, and it can be really challenging and difficult. We project everything. Now, we project positive and negative. The negative ones are the ones like I just mentioned. She projected negatively onto me. And of course, it hurt my feelings, and it was rude, and it was, all kinds of things that went against me, and, I felt judged in all kinds of ways, and it was hurtful. But there are positive projections. When you fall in love with somebody, this is a positive projection. This person is my soulmate. They finish my sentences. We finish each other's thoughts. They're my other half. And and in the beginning, the oxytocin in the brain and the love chemicals and the great sex and everything. And you're projecting onto them how perfect they are, and that they're doing the same to you. And so there are negative things that are coming out that you are dodging, you're choosing not to look at. And your partner is also choosing not to look at the negative things about you. Or they'll project and turn it into something positive, something that they love about you now. I've heard somebody say the things they love about you now are going to be the things that they hate about you later. Oh my God, you're so attractive, and you're so free, and you're so wild, and look at all the girls look at you. Well, that's great in the beginning, but then, after you've been married for a year, then it's like, yeah, you know what? You need to dress differently. Guys do this a lot. You need to stop dressing so seductively out in public. You're my girlfriend, and I don't want anybody else looking at you. These are all projections. You project your own fears. So we positively project onto people. People, maybe not so much recently, but people sometimes positively transfer and project onto me until they find out that I'm human, and then they have to decide whether or not they want to still keep being my student. But you positively and negatively project on people. If you're full of anger, you walk around and you think everybody's angry. If you're full of judgment, you think everybody's judging you. If you're full of love, you think everybody loves you. So this is important because the projections that don't serve us are part of our narrative. So if you have it written in your, if you have it written in your narrative, in your script that you're unattractive, or people don't like you, or people aren't comfortable around you, then you're going to project onto them, I really don't like that person. I'm not comfortable around them. They're angry all the time. Now, when you know what your projections are, then you can do something to change it. So that's the first in the list, which is projection. The second one is a really interesting one. It's called introjection. So introjection is, this happens very early. You know, you gain an identity, who you are. One of the things people will say, you know, when they, if they have a really strong identity, if they're individuated, if everything goes wrong in their life, they will say, you know, the only thing I have left is my integrity. And that is everything to them, you know. Or, you know, people are, you'll be offered 6 figures or $1 million if you do this. And then the person says, I can't do that. My integrity won't let me. And they're willing to be poor, or, you know, some other way severely inconvenienced, but they have what's most valuable to them, which is their integrity, which is their identity. We might even say your soul. Your soul is more important to you than even your physical life. Well, the only thing I have left is my integrity. And that is an introjection. So we've talked about, obviously, you know, there's no such thing as a perfect parent. So parents will make mistakes raising little infants and raising young children. They won't love them perfectly. They won't always be there. They might be overprotective, you know, so instead of being neglected, they might be, you know, not give the child any, you know, boundaries whatsoever. So there's all kinds of things that can go on in the beginning in terms of how you see yourself. So an introjection, a positive introjection, would be if the mother, because this is what the mother is supposed to do, the mother is supposed to be this safe base for the infant, for the growing child, the toddler, to come to whenever anything is wrong. That's why mommy always kisses your boo-boos, and mommy will hold you and let you cry. Daddy teaches you about things, but mommy is always that place that says, no matter what you're feeling, no matter what is going on, mommy loves you no matter what. You are perfect simply because you exist. You are perfect simply because you have feelings and reactions. You know, in fact, you know, the mother is the one that's going to notice if the child isn't crying. You know, if the child isn't reacting to things normally, and then the mother is going to find out the child is deaf, because, you know, the mom wants you to react to life so that she can be there, but it's her job to just give you the feeling that you have value simply because you exist and you have feelings and reactions. And so that's an introjection. You have value simply because you have feelings and reactions. And so mother becomes that safe place. Nothing else is necessarily safe. Daddy sometimes can get angry and tells you to knock it off and pick up your toys or whatever it is. I'm busy, you be quiet. Brother and sister, they're older, they're going to be maybe abusive, they're going to be competitive. And so there has to be a safe place for baby to go, which is mommy. Mommy never rejects. And the introjection, if mommy does that correctly, the introjection in the child is, I have value in and of myself. That will later translate later in life to, the only thing I have is my integrity, and therefore I cannot take your $1 million, which represents love. The love that I have for myself is more important than this external love that you're going to give me in exchange for whatever it is you want me to sacrifice for that $1 million. I'm sorry, I can't do that. That goes against my morals. It goes against my integrity, and my integrity is the only true thing that I have. That's an introjection. The belief that God loves you, the belief that the universe is there. So I'm constantly trying to introject into you guys to tell you to just buy into the assumption that the universe loves you and the universe wants you to have everything you've ever wanted. Now, I'm not your mother, so unfortunately I can't introject that into you. You're going to have to just grab onto that assumption and act as if. But this is where the challenge comes, because we act unconsciously and spontaneously based on our introjection. Little children who have been abused, neglected, the introject many of them get is that they don't exist. They have no value. They have no worth. And so they respond to life based on that introjection within themselves. If you're in an abusive relationship, if you've ever been in a relationship with an abusive person, a narcissist or a borderline or somebody like that that is really devaluing and confusing and abusive, then even if you've got some health in you, what ends up happening is you take on, that person ends up being introjected inside of you. And so this is why people have to oftentimes go to therapists after they've been into abusive relationships, so that they can, sort of get that mole out of their head. That's an introjection that can come later in life. So the introjection will change and sometimes replace your narrative, your programming of who you are. But if you don't realize that, if you don't know how that happened, there's nothing you can do about it. And most importantly, if you don't realize that the basis for all of your internal programming is a strategy to get love. If you've been programmed correctly, you will understand that giving unconditionally makes you happy because you have empathy. It makes other people happy and your life gets better. You like that person I talked about earlier about projection, who thinks that everybody, I like myself, you must like me too. Hi, what's your name? Can we exchange numbers? Obviously, they're going to, when somebody rejects them, they're going to go, oh, something wrong with that guy. I know I'm a nice person. This person will like me. It's a numbers game. They know that, and they know eventually they're going to find people and continue to have people want to be around them. Whereas the person whose introjection is that nobody loves them, they're not valuable, they're not worthy, and they project onto them, that person is mean, that person is a snob, then of course people start to respond to that and they don't get what they want. That's going to bring us to the third obstacle, which is giant question mark. So this is the most important one. This is the most powerful of the three, and it is the one that is the natural result of these first two obstacles, projection and introjection. So in order to see that video, you need to go to thunderwizard.com and you need to subscribe to the Manifestation Mastery course. And you can scroll down and you will see the obstacles video there, and you'll have access to that. I also recommend that you subscribe to the 90-day Warrior Lightning Qigong, which will give you access to the Manifestation Mastery course as well as every other video on the thunderwizard.com Patreon site. Check out maoshan.thunderwizard.com. We just uploaded the fire element. But to hear the third obstacle, go to Manifestation Mastery course, subscribe. It's a monthly subscription. If you don't want to hold on to it, you can get rid of it whenever you want. Try it for a month. You don't like it, you can unsubscribe whenever you want. All right, so I'll see you over there. Thunderwizard.com, Manifestation Mastery course, the 3 obstacles, video number 2. I'll see you over there. Let's see, where's my end screen? We'll just end here.